Good morning and good evening. Today we're talking to Aki from DLC. This conversation is brought to you by Stacks Ventures. If you're an investor, please message DLC for a demo day invite. Links to Twitter and website are in the description below. The link is building the bridge that lets $1 trillion of Bitcoin be used for DeFi with no custodian risk. Stacks can read Bitcoin, but can't trigger Bitcoin transactions. DLC is creating a solution to address this. Aki, how are you doing today, my friend?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for being here. Tell us more about DLC and the problem that you're solving. We saw you guys on the Twitter space a couple of days ago, and people were really interested in what you're building with discrete log contracts and enabling settlement on Bitcoin. Please tell us more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we're doing has the potential to add another billion onto Stacks' market cap. It's very broadly applicable. The common challenge is that Stacks is great at reading Bitcoin state, and the proof of transfer kind of participates in Bitcoin, or there's some interlinking between Stacks and Bitcoin. But Stacks cannot settle in Bitcoin, it cannot write to Bitcoin. And so every application on Stacks has to basically either use the XDS token or maybe a wrapped Bitcoin like XBTC or whatever. And what we're doing is we're using a technology called discrete log contracts that enables us to build a bridge that will let Stack apps actually lock and unlock Bitcoin on mainnet. So basically, end users will be able to use Bitcoin native apps, and they might not even know that Stacks is running in the background. It'll all just be seamless, but you get all the benefits of the smart contracts that Stacks and Clarity offer.
How are you guys starting with thinking about the solution for what you're going to build? There are a lot of places where you can start either DeFi or GameFi, or just build the bridge for other teams to take the solution and do something with it. Are you guys just going to start with being able to bridge Bitcoin to Stacks?
Yes. So we're starting. It's a great question because it really has to do with the kind of how do we roll this out and how do we get people to take advantage of it? So we're building the bridge right now. We should have a prototype end of June or late July, the earliest. And we're prototyping with a couple of Stacks teams. So we started with Civita Mining that has a use case that specifically requires BTC to be locked and unlocked. We're working with Arcadico around potentially introducing a BTC-backed stablecoin on Stacks, which would be different from USDA with their current coin called USDB. I don't know. And we're also working with Alex around DeFi use cases to unlock Bitcoin liquidity and let Alex and their users take advantage of that. So there's a couple of examples. We're exploring some DAO use cases as well. But essentially, the idea would be to test out the bridge with some of these partners and then get to a point where anyone can just, fork it or use the repo, use the instructions, and basically build the bridge into their own application.
Can you give us the one-on-one level of discrete log contracts and what it is and how do people use it today?
Yes. Yeah, it's a technology, DLCs or technology developed a few years ago at MIT by Taj Durda, who then went on to co-author the Lightning Network. So it's a cryptographic, approach. It's actually not a protocol. It's not code. It's basically a way to have two or more parties, have essentially like a multi-sig, 2 of 3 multi-sig relationship where there is an independent oracle as one of the signers. And all that DLCs require is a hash address. So every party needs an address. So it will work for Bitcoin, it will work for anything else, but Bitcoin happens to, be the one where it adds more value. And essentially the oracle just signs or pre-publishes transactions between the parties or signatures. And then as time goes on and the actual outcome is known, the oracle signs one signature, attests to one signature, and then the winning party can retrieve the value. So both parties post collateral, the oracle creates a bunch of signatures, the oracle listens for the outcome, and it could be one or multiple oracles, but the oracle layer listens for the outcome, and whatever happens, when that is known, the oracle attests to the correct winning outcome, and then the parties can go and retrieve that token, so or that value. So it's really a very simple way to lock up an escrow contract, where the escrow is essentially governed by an oracle. And so, what are the oracles? What can the oracles do? Well, they can listen to data feeds like a price feed. So we started working with Chainlink. They have a lot of price feeds and also non-financial data. So we can use the price feed to unlock. So for example, if we make a bet that Bitcoin price will be XYZ in the future, the oracle can listen to the Bitcoin price feed and determine what happened, and do take action that way, or unlock action that way. Or the oracle can listen to a programmed event, so smart contract event. So if you have a clarity contract that where something happens, then based on the outcome of that can trigger an oracle attestation or unlock, essentially, and then that unlocks it. So it's a way for people to lock up value in escrow and then unlock it selectively based on a future outcome, which then is pretty foundational. It enables a whole lot of use cases, and it's all trustless and non-custodial, because there isn't a custodian used. It's just the two parties and the oracle.
During the Twitter space, I pinned the tweet from Mackie where he shared the link to the market for smart contracts is hundreds of trillions, and it shows the staggering amount of value between gold, stock market, global real estate, and then derivatives. And I just thought that was a really great chart to see the amount of value that could flow into crypto, and oracles could use where derivatives and real estate, you can apply this tech to many use cases for DLCs.
Yeah, it's a huge space because essentially, and this might be an oversimplification, but Bitcoin came out, it was great, but then people wanted to do more advanced things. So then Ethereum was created and people started doing things on ETH. But we have this kind of divergence between Bitcoin as a store of value, Bitcoin as a currency or money that is used now by governments as well in some places. And so we have the value and the liquidity there, and the users. But as soon as you start to get into smart contracts, it just is not even thought of by many people as smart contractable. And so bridging that gap on any level is absolutely huge. And we started, I mean, we'll get into this probably more, but we started at Stacks because we think Stacks is the best position to take advantage of that unlock. But it really will spread from there. And I have conversations daily with different people with different philosophical perspectives around Bitcoin and ETH and whatever else is going to be out there. But one thing's for sure is that with over $1 trillion of value, to whatever extent we can unlock it has an outsized, tremendous impact.
Is it only you and Mackie on the team right now?
I know. Mackie is our social media coordinator, so he is, all over the Twitter sphere, which has been great. But and super helpful to get the word out. But the team, we have about 7 people. We originally this started with Dan von Cohorn and I. Dan is our founding board member, he used to run software engineering at a quant fund for a long time on Wall Street. Then he became a VC and an entrepreneur. He's built over 15 companies. We're in his 16th company he's helping build. He founded a company called Rhombus, built it out and sold it to Chainlink. It was an Oracle network. and just he got really excited about DLCs, and so wanted to help us build this out the right way so that it's essentially more what we build ends up being a good long-term fit for the ecosystem. So Dan is our board member, going to more from an advisory, architecture, governance angle. Then we've got my co-founder, Jesse Eisenberg, or CTO. He's a native Californian who lives in Budapest, has been in Budapest for 5 years. I was born in Hungary, so we met through startup people that way. And then Jesse's got a small team in Hungary, a couple of engineers, and we'll be adding more. Obviously I'm biased, but Hungarians, great engineers, great, work very hard, very smart people, and fun to work with. So build in Hungary. And then I'm in New York, I'm in Brooklyn, and we also have Matt Bombard, our business analyst here. He's in Jersey, but he's still cool, and we comes over to Brooklyn sometimes, and so he was a tech audit guy at Goldman Sachs for a couple of years, and so he's seen these systems and he sees the potential of what we're building. So it's kind of our motley crew. We just started a few months ago, really, so we're just getting started. My last company, which I can elaborate more on, last company grew to 50 people over a couple of years. So I think we're in a good spot now, but we're going to be adding folks. So we're going to be actively hiring engineers, DevOps, content marketing, you name it. So I think over the coming months, the team will get even bigger.
Yeah, and I guess being from Jersey and Brooklyn, there are some rivalries, right?
Yeah, I probably are. I'm like the least sports, fluent person in the world. Sometimes I feel like that. So sports rivalries probably exist. I can't, detect them. I've lived in 14 cities in my life on 3 continents, and my brother's in Asia, so we go there a lot. So I almost want to even count that too. I've got a 10-year Chinese visa, so I've been in different places, but yeah. But let's just put it this way: I'll gladly go out to Jersey, but I prefer if Matt, comes to Brooklyn and we build it out here.
Some of those conversations that you're having at a philosophical level, but also at a practical level, I bet you I know some of the people you're having this conversation with around making Bitcoin more productive and some of the future opportunities that you see with stacks.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting because being new to this ecosystem, I'm learning different philosophies, and I think the philosophy of why and what's going to happen and how do we, predict the future by building it. I think that's so important. But just I've just had such a range of conversations even this week that I'm realizing that sometimes people seem to be very, wedded to a particular view of the future, and the reality is nobody knows what's going to happen. That's my view. So some people are Bitcoin maxis and they think that ETH will like somehow go away or turn around or get absorbed into Lightning or whatever. I don't. I think that that's a bit narrow, but who knows? That could happen. Some people say Bitcoin is dead or Bitcoin is some old thing that because it's a couple of years old. I think that's also not so realistic. I think we're going to see a lot of evolution and a lot of change, and really what we're going to look for is what's the value that is created for users. And it's one thing when crypto people or self-taught crypto people like myself who are just kind of learning pieces of it, it's one thing when we use something, but it's bigger when it crosses the chasm and gets out into the world. And whatever applications are going to cross that chasm, even if they're NFTs, which I never anticipated will get so big, but it did. So whatever gets out into the world, that's going to drive adoption and use, and of course, financial value and transactions. So we really just need to keep an open mind about the future direction. That said, Stacks seem to be a really great place to build it because it feels like Stacks is at the intersection of smart contracts and Bitcoin more so than any other network. or rather, there are probably other networks, and I've seen a couple that try to do the same, but Stacks is the most developed and the most, thoughtfully designed of all of them, in my view too. So we've had a great reception here. A lot of teams very open to experimenting, and of course, we're solving a problem that, hopefully we can deliver all of the parts of the solution that we think we can build. But the impact is tremendous. So Stacks, for this type of project, Stacks has been a really great place to get rolling. And as we mature, we're going to also work with other networks and look at other places. We're building an ETH adapter as well, in partnership with Chainlink. So there are multiple heads to the Hydra, but it really, the goal is just to make everything interoperable and really enhance Bitcoin's DeFi capabilities. So the more we can do that, I think the better.
Again, we're all early, right? We always think, oh man, we missed the boat, but this stuff is so early. One of the conversations that I see that's more comfortable at this point in the evolution of crypto is a lot of people, even though they may be building on one chain, they are thinking about interoperability, and they're thinking about how can I partner, especially within Stacks. Stacks is such a warm community that we're always thinking, how can we partner together? Even if there isn't anything there today, we always think about, well, what's the next iteration? Can we partner down the road or collaborate? And then another thing that I'm seeing come into crypto is, even if I build this DApp or protocol on this chain, whether it's Stacks, Ethereum, Avalanche, people are starting to think, well, at some point I want to be multi-chain as well.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I see three major buckets of functionality. And I have to say, part of the, maybe it's a good thing, maybe I'll regret these words later, but part of what seems to be easier around building a protocol is, to some extent, we have to make sure the bridge works really well, but it's horizontal, and the actual users are, come up with so many use cases that we can't even imagine, that my colleague Matt is, frantically cataloging all the use cases that we hear, and even use cases that we don't hear that should exist because it exists in traditional finance, like credit default swaps or who knows. But there are countless use cases, and we are at this point running across new ones, several times a week. But they do kind of bucket into three categories. One is just a simple kind of plain vanilla escrow contract. So for example, for Arcadico, they're looking to mint a stable coin, a Bitcoin-backed stable coin on Stacks. And that would just require locking up Bitcoin. Then you mint the coin on Arcadico, you do whatever, and then you burn the coin to unlock Bitcoin. And that's basically what, a simple escrow contract. And you can use escrow for, transferring things or buying and selling, or doing trades and settling the trades faster than what traditional finance can do. So there's so many use cases for escrow, but that's kind of the basic foundational piece. And then building on top of that, you have lending, where we're locking the collateral and monitoring the level of collateral as one use case. And then DeFi, you can have futures and options, derivatives, where basically locking value, and depending on what happens in the future, releasing it in different ways. So all of those are just absolutely valid use cases. Very likely the market for each of those is so large that we're probably going to be, not just the only team in the world building this. There probably will be many others, but it, we're really focusing on getting it out as quickly as possible, and iterating. And that kind of runs parallel with my experience. 8 years ago, I started an AI company where I was the first to do something, was the first to optimize SEO using topic modeling, which ended up shifting the entire SEO industry over to that method of optimization. But in the early days, I was pretty much the only one. There were a couple of other people who had a similar idea, but we were building faster and built a higher quality data feed and so on. And so the company, was many years later raised a bunch of funding and was named the undisputed leader in its space. But now you look today, and there are a lot of other people also doing topical content optimization because it just makes sense on a high level. So I think we're again early. We're bringing it. We're going to make it work here or make it work well, and then invite other teams to take it the next to the next step, and we'll just keep branching out.
If you're also thinking about other DLC bridges on other chains, does that mean bringing Bitcoin on a different chain, or is that their native token on a different chain?
It would be Bitcoin focused. So, for example, can you lock Bitcoin and mint something on ETH? Maybe that's already easy to do because it's going to sounds like wrap Bitcoin potentially, but can you do it, non-custodially with a smart contract, without using, I guess it would be using a Solidity contract, but using minimal Solidity code and in a trustless non-custodial manner, and basically it'd be any of those networks. So we're still pretty early in exploring that because we just want to create a great product that works super well at Stacks and is secure and provides real liquidity. But as we test that out, I think we're going to learn more about the market and the broader applications of DLCs.
Can you tell us about your experience in the Stacks Accelerator and advice for other companies coming into the accelerator?
Yeah, so we joined the accelerator just a few weeks ago, at Trevor's insistence, and it's been fantastic. I mean, for us, when we've been here, so now it's May. We joined Stacks in March, so we received a grant from the foundation, I think February 28th, and we started building in March, or shortly around then. So yeah, we've only been here a couple months, but we were sort of content just building and building and just kind of doing that because we're engineers, that's what we do. And it really, props to Trevor for basically, once he heard the pitch, he's like, wait a moment, you guys are ready to kind of take this bigger and move faster, which I have to admit it's in my DNA anyway, so that resonated with me right off the bat. I love to get out of the building, talk to customers, pitch people, have doors slammed in my face, as he always, happens in sales. But, I just love to get it out, mobilize things and get it moving. So as soon as Trevor said that, I'm like, yeah, that sounds good to us. But within the accelerator, they've really built they've institutionalized it. They've built a process where you start somewhere and they help you a lot, and then you iterate every couple of days or every day. You pitch VCs every day. You get feedback. Sometimes it's short, sometimes it's long, but they make sure that we're actively evolving our pitch on a day-to-day basis, and they're really opening up a lot of opportunities. So they I think they slot in, as far as I can tell, they slot in like 2 or 3 VC funds every week, and come demo day, it'll be probably a couple hundred in a short amount of time. So they're bringing their networks, they're making it happen, and they're pushing us to do more faster, and that's really what we need and what anybody really needs from a coach.
What advice would you have for others that either get a grant or they have some experience in the Web2 world as startup founders or entrepreneurs, and they learn about Bitcoin, they learn about Stacks? What would you tell them?
It's interesting seeing I think Stacks in particular has a lot of engineers, which is excellent. But that is the most important, I would argue, the most important first step in the process is building a great product that actually solves a need in the market. Once you have that engineering kind of done, and I speak from experience, I started coding when I was 9. I built a lot of the code for my earlier company. I was the CTO for 2 years before I took on the CEO title. We just didn't have a CEO for 2 years because we didn't need one. I was just building and running the engineering team, and that was great. But then I had to transition to sales and marketing and PR and learn all these other things. And then even management, which is probably my less of my favorite, but who knows, maybe I've grown to like it over the years. But I would say 8 years at Market Muse, the first 2 years were dev. And then the next six were, sales, marketing, fundraising, positioning, pitching, being there. And I think that's really the only, it's better to be an engineer first. I think it's safer for something like crypto to be able to build, with your own hands, and then you learn how to sell. But my advice horizontally is everybody needs to sell. Everybody needs to pitch all the time. Everybody in the company ideally should be able to sell. We should be prospecting every day. That's one of the messages is, hey, we should be doing the fundraising now, not don't wait till demo day. But that also breaks down to, every day prospect, reach out to people, just get out of the building, go go go, because although it takes away from the product dev to some extent, and of course, founding is hard. I mean, you have to do both at the same time. But I think what I'm to kind of answer the original question, I see some of the teams are awesome, and some of the teams are just kind of now getting out of their comfort zone. And getting out from behind the desks and actually pitching people and putting on a suit or polo shirt or whatever, and actually getting in front of money people who might not be engineers at all. Maybe they were in the right place at the right time, and they believe in Bitcoin, and they have dollars that we need to fund operations. And so, speaking those various languages and just getting out there and being proactive, I think that's really everything. And that applies to, I would say that applies to the entire ecosystem here. We can't sell too much. We can't have too many leads, and we just have to be aggressive and get out there and like I said, I think the ecosystem's doing a good job, but we have to, as on the accelerator, everybody consistently one-to-one has to become great at selling, pitching, and value selling essentially. So obviously, now that I've said that, I want to help make that happen.
When did you learn about Bitcoin? And obviously, you put a grant request in. So, what advice do you have for others building a multi-chain world here?
Okay, two questions. One is my sad sob story of why I'm not a gazillionaire. My story is especially poignant, I think, because I learned about it in 2011. Mount Gox. Just I saw it used, and I had $3,000, and I'm like, I could either put it into this Bitcoin thing, which seems cool, or I could invest it into myself because I'm starting this awesome new AI company and I should invest into myself. And so I put all 3,000 into myself, and obviously learned a lot through the voyage, but I probably should have put at least $50 into that. So yeah, that I think maybe that's my answer to, there should never be any maximalism on anything, because you never know what's going to happen. And at least I could have put, even just $5 would have been probably, millions today. And then I actually, by the time it came to learning about ETH and whatever, 2015 or 16, I just didn't have any liquidity because I had put everything there, and again, could have put $50 in. So, that's a lesson learned for a lifetime. I think, yeah, multi-chain, we're going to see a lot more evolution on that. Chainlink is coming out with their CCIP, solution sometime later this summer, the cross-chain interoperability protocol. There are already various bridges. I think we're going to see a lot more value get created, and it's I wish there was a simple solution and everything would be compatible everywhere, but there are probably going to be some significant engineering trade-offs around, what do we want? Do we want decentralization? Do we want speed? These are essentially polar opposites in some ways. Anything that can do both is going to have some other gaps. So I think we're going to see a lot of different use cases and a lot of different chains supporting a lot of different, essentially these are different operating systems, and we have so many operating systems. I mean, we have a couple of main ones, and then we have some other ones. So, WhatsApp was built in a completely different for using a completely different operating system, or I should say stack, that than other apps, and because it was really fast. And so there are custom. I'm kind of rambling a bit, but prior to MarketMuse, I was involved in NoSQL kind of movement. I worked at an analytical database that was a NoSQL database, and so you ended up with 120 types of databases, and some really unusual ones like Cassandra, which I still don't quite understand, and graph databases and transactional memsql, and analytical, and it just became very diverse. And I think that's what we're going to see with blockchains as well.
The tweet that Munib put out about he hasn't been this excited for breakthrough innovation. And I know DLC got a lot of mentions in that tweet about bringing a peg in, peg out for Bitcoin, for native Bitcoin. Were when you saw that tweet, what were your thoughts?
Really interested to learn more, and I still am. That is, it turns out that's something that Marvin Jansen is building, using threshold signatures, or adapters, or which sounds great. But it's quite a ways out. Whatever it is, we'd love to adopt it into the solution we're doing. Sounds like we have a little bit less to build, but our major kind of engineering lift is building a decentralized network of oracles, to do because the DLC structure exists, but making the oracle trustless and decentralized is just a key part of that architecture. So that's probably where most of our work is going to be, and whatever enhancements happen to Stacks Core in the meantime, it's going to help. And whatever enhancements are applied to Bitcoin Core, there's a proposal out, BIP 119, check template verify. There's a lot of opinions back and forth. I don't have a strong opinion, but if that is adopted, that's going to make DLCs more powerful. Taproot added Schnorr signatures and PTLCs, which were required essentially to make DLCs operational. So we're just going to see base infrastructure improvements that we will gladly integrate as soon as possible, and play with, even if they're not fully available. But our focus is on serving our customers. We Archideco and the users of Archideco, or any kind of Bitcoin. You mentioned Zest. There's also Lava. The users of these systems don't really care if it stacks or Schnorr or something else, but they just want it to work, and that's our we're engineering, we're building engineered systems that are going to deliver the value, and that's all we're really focused on. But yeah, excited for whatever the engineering team can come up with. This is super. It just shows that this is a lively ecosystem that's actively being invested into and growing, and I think it's going to just get bigger and bigger over the years.
Where can more people find out about DLC?
If anyone is interested in writing content, please help Maki and me out. So we're actively looking to find people in that regard. But our Twitter handles, the best, DLC_link. Maki has been manning that channel. We also have a website at dlc.link, but right now it's just the sign up page. We're working on more, but we'll eventually have a newsletter, so please sign up there too. But yeah, follow our Twitter handle, and you'll hear the latest.